Hello everybody and a very warm welcome to Paul Ricard for the first race of the 2019 International GT Open season as you join us here in the south of France for the first 14 races around 7 of Europe's finest venues. And it's a very warm welcome from myself, Ben Evans, to a sunny but somewhat blustery afternoon here with strong breeze that has been blowing all day. It's not quite as bad as yesterday, but there is a fair bit of wind chill and also the opportunity for quite a lot of slipstreaming as you drive into the headwind. So this is the start of what promises to be another thoroughly entertaining season in the International GT Open as we ride in car with Naji Razak in the Ombra Racing Lamborghini that he shares with the 2012 champion Federico Leo. Emil Frey Racing are back into the International GT Open this year, but without the Lexus. Instead, they've got a brace of Lamborghini Huracans, and it is Albert Costa and Michael Grenier who are at the wheel for the start of the race. But it was pole position this morning that went the way of Alam Kader in the Teo Martin Motorsport McLaren. The Spanish squad switching back to the McLaren mark over the winter, and it was Kader who took the pole position. We're in car with Fabrizio Cristani in one of the two SPS Automotive Mercedes as Albert Costa rolls to halt fourth on the grid. Ahead of this, the longer race of the weekend, the 70-minute race. Look there at Martin Kodrich, the second of the Teo Martin Motorsport McLarens, and Kodrich out of nowhere late on in qualifying. An excellent performance to put the car into third on the grid as everybody else runs through into their grid positions as Kader just tries to wind his way through to the front row of the grid that he shares with the Antonelli Motorsport Mercedes of Daniel Zampieri. Alongside Zampieri will be Alessio Rivera. So very, very quick combination for Antonelli Motorsport. For Alam Kader, he is in the Pro-Am class, united with Marcello Hahn once more. And Kader and Hahn were getting quicker and quicker last year in the Mercedes that was run by the DriveX team, making the switch across to McLaren and the Teo Martin Motorsport team over the winter, and immediately right to the front of the field. And this is the first chance to enjoy the McLaren 720S in the International GT Open. Second on the grid then, as we said, for the Antonelli Motorsport Mercedes. Third on the grid for Martin Kodrich and Enrique Chavez in their Teo Martin Motorsport McLaren. And then fourth on the grid, it's the Emil Frey Racing Lamborghini, and it's Albert Costa, the very, very popular Spaniard, alongside Giacomo Altoe in that car. Fifth on the grid for Fabrizio Cristani and Miguel Ramos, reunited once more as a pairing, but they have switched team and mark. They move across to the SPS Automotive Mercedes team, and fairly obviously at the wheel of Mercedes. Alam Kader, job done in qualifying as last-minute conversations underway, just working through strategy for the race. Daniel Zampieri, GTS champion, going back to 2012 season. That was at the wheel of the Kessel Racing Ferrari. Zampieri, who's always been very quick, whatever he has turned his hand to. Martin Kodrich, like co-pilot Enrique Chavez, graduate of the Formula Renault 2-litre championship, amongst other things. And then for Albert Costa, former Formula Renault 2-litre Eurocup champion, former McGann Trophy champion, came very close to winning the International GT Open Championship a couple of years ago. Both Fabrizio Cristani and Miguel Ramos are outright International GT Open champions. Miguel Ramos' case, the 2015 season. For Fabrizio Cristani, the following year. Then it is Fabio Onidi starting in 6th. Thomas Jaeger in the Row Racing Sun Energy Racing car in 7th place. 8th on the grid, Andres Saravia alongside Fran Rueda, the third of the Teo Martin Motorsport McLarens. Now, Saravia and Rueda victorious here in Paul Ricard a year ago in the race where we had the sudden thunderstorm with just a couple of laps remaining. 9th on the grid for Michael Grenier, the second of the Emil Frey Racing Lamborghinis. And then 10th on the grid is the Tempesta Racing Ferrari of Edward Cheever III and Christopher Froggatt, and it is Cheever who takes to the start. So very, very competitive top 10. 70-minute race, so we have got the pit window between the 28th and 42nd minutes of the race, and that will bring in the element of strategy. Of course, they all run on the Michelin tyre. And again, how they manage their tyre allocation through the course of the weekend is going to be key. A look at how they line up in full with Cadet and Zampieri on the front row of the grid. Then Martin Kodrich and Albert Costa on row 2. Row 3, Fabrizio Crestani and Fabio Onidi. Row 4 of the grid is Thomas Jaeger and Andres Saravia. Row 5, Michael Grenier and Edward Cheever III. Alberto Di Fulco and Giuseppe Cipriani on row 6. Row 7, Nicholas Pola and Valentin Pierberg. Pierberg, the reigning Pro-Am champion. Frederick Shantov and Jiatong Liang on row 8th. Row 9, Oliver Wilkinson in the Aston Martin and Antonio Coimbra. Davide Roda and Petru Svan Umbrescu. Row 10, row 11, Naji Razak and Alexander Raquina. And then Duncan Cameron completing the field in his Spirit of Race Ferrari that he shares with Matt Griffin. The field making an absolutely magnificent sight as they form up on the grid. So just a couple of moments away then from the start of the first race of the International GT Open season here in Paul Ricard. As the cars thunder away on to their formation lap. The last chance to get a sense of the 5.8 kilometre circuit before the race and indeed the season gets underway. And after a very competitive qualifying session this morning, the race wide open. As the season unfolds, of course, the success handicaps will come into play, but this being the first race of the year, they won't. So it is going to be a straight fight to the flag for Naji Razak. Quite a lot of work for him to do from 21st on the grid, but he has got Federico Leo waiting in the rings to take over from him. There are, of course, the 3 classes in the race. There's the Pro class, there is the Pro-Am class, and we have also got the Am class as well. It's Giuseppe Cipriani, who we watch now, who was the Am class pole sitter for Antonelli Motorsport in car with Fabrizio Crestani. And Crestani, one of the drivers who was in the hunt for pole position all the way through qualifying this morning. So in terms of the Pro-Am front runners, we generally had the pro driver out in qualifying, the exception being that Valentin Pierberg will hand over to the very, very quick Tom Onslow Cole at mid-race. Frederick Shantov and Kang Ling are pretty evenly matched in Vincenzo Sospiri Racing Lamborghini. Oliver Wilkinson pass over to Bradley Ellis. Jiatong Liang will hand over to Raffaele Gianmaria. And of course, Duncan Cameron to Matt Griffin. So that will also begin to shift the order of things as well. Through the chicane that bisects the Mistral Straight here in Paul Ricard. And then on towards the Courbe de Seine, the heat haze shimmering off the car. They're absolutely thunderous, and the pace that they're able to unleash is formidable. Also on board with Martin Kodrich, starting for third position. One of the trio of Teo Martin Motorsport McLarens, as now it is the sister car of Alain Cadet that begins to pace the field. He has got Daniel Zampieri alongside him as the field begin to bunch up side by side. 70 minutes of racing ahead of us to start the International GT Open season here in Paul Ricard. Thank you very much for joining us this afternoon. We should be in for another fine season of racing. First of all, they all need to make it through the opening corners cleanly. Then they can think about getting into the rhythm of the race, as Cadet looking to try and give the pace car the hurry up a little bit, as the field now all bunched through the final turn. They'll be looking to the lights on the gantry, waiting for the red lights to turn to green. When that happens, we will be going racing for the first time in 2019, as the field on their way now. The thunder beginning to build, and Cadet really pausing them. A couple of them looking to break ranks early, and away we go now. And it was Chiva who was looking to gain ground, and it was Andres Saravia who possibly got a little bit of a surprise then. He's been passed by Chiva as into turn one, and it is Cadet who gets the advantage from Zampieri. Costa, though, goes wheel to wheel with Kodrich. Martin Kodrich, though, just about holds his position. He's behind a couple of the Target Racing Lamborghinis, a little bit too close for comfort. Crestani looking to push his way through, about the top five exactly as they qualified. It's then Chiva in 6th, Jaeger in 7th, Andres Saravia into 7th place as Easy squeezes past Thomas Jaeger. Also in a little bit of bumping and bombing is Michael Grenier. He gets pushed out by fast starting Nicolas Pola. And Grenier possibly in a little bit of trouble there as he pulls off the road. Has he picked up a puncture maybe? As he slows in the second the ML Frey Racing Lamborghinis. The leading group of cars all arrive into the chicane midway down the Mistral Straight. In car with Fabrizio Crestani, and Crestani there in 5th place. He's got Chiva filling his mirrors. He is pursuing Albert Costa. Meanwhile, Albert Giuseppe Cipriani under a little bit of pressure from Jiatong Liang as they head towards the Courbe du Sine, and Liang looking to the inside of Cipriani. Cipriani, though, able to stick to the racing line. No way through there for Liang on that occasion. It's Cadet trying to stretch the front of the field. He's got Zampieri right with him. Then it's Martin Kodrich as Nicolas Pola well away up with Thomas Jaeger. Then a slight gap back to Frederick Schandorf. He's got Alberto Di Folco to contend with. And then Fabio Anidi in the very, very similar to the sister car, liveried Team Lazarus Lamborghini. So through they come to complete the first lap of the season. And Cadet, an advantage of 8/10 of a second over Daniel Zampieri. The real fighting is going on behind as Chiva looking every which way to try and find a way past Fabrizio Crestani. The rest of them all jinking and jostling for ground, as unfortunately the Petri course Bentley is into the pits early on. A little bit of damage there to the front of the car, you can see. So also Michael Grenier still limping back to the pits. So those are the two casualties from the first lap of the race. Antonio Coimbra also shuffled some way down the field. The rest of the pack hurtle out of turn 7 onto the Mistral Straight. And Alain Cadet looking to build the buffer over Zampieri. Martin Kodrich, we ride in car with now, trying to apply a bit of pressure to Zampieri on the brakes down through the gears, as Crestani has got Chiva and Saravia right behind him. And Andres Saravia anxious to make sure that his teammate Alain Cadet doesn't split the field too much in the early stages of the race. Michael Grenier into the pits, and it's the damage to the offside that we can't quite see at the moment. This is the concern for the Emil Frey Racing team. There's an opportunity there for Albert Costa, just a slight error from Kodrich on the way into turn 11. Albert Costa goes through up into third, but for how long? Kodrich looks to fight back. No way through, though, for Martin Kodrich. We're riding car with him now. This is now the turn of Costa to take the fight to the Antonelli Motorsport Mercedes. Daniel Zampieri. As they swing through the final turn. Accelerating over the line, and it's pretty much a doubled advantage there for Alam Kader. Now 1.7 seconds, the gap that he has been able to build. Cheever again, looking to the inside of Fabrizio Crestani, nothing doing. We've got one car in trouble, and I rather fear it's the Petri Course Bentley, which is back on track, but in a spot of bother. Could be Antonio Coimbra, who's also moving slowly. Another look at the start, and in the background you see the white Ferrari of Cheever launching away as Alam Kader and Daniel Zampieri heading side by side towards turn one. But Kader it was who had the track position over Zampieri and was therefore able to ease past and pick his way through. It was then the ripple effect that resulted in Miguel Grenier being under the contract, possibly VSR Lamborghini. Quite sure the Bentley got involved in all of that either. There are bits of Petri Course Bentley flying off in every direction. And here is the problem for Antonio Coimbra, and that looks suspiciously like a punch to me as well. Well held for Coimbra. And this is the move then for Albert Costa, the inside of Martin Kodrich, enough to take the place. Here's the fight then for 10th place between Frederic Chantov and Alberto Di Folco. Meanwhile, in the battle for 5th, Fabrizio Crestani still ahead of Cheever and Saravia. We ride in car with Martin Kodrich as Albert Costa right up now with Daniel Zampieri. All of this, in terms of the scrap per second, is just allowing Alam Kader to begin to break away a little bit. It's the Mercedes leads the Lamborghini, leads the McLaren in this fight for second position, and then behind them they've got Mercedes and Ferrari doing battle as Giuseppe Cipriani. No, it's not, my apologies. It is a very similarly liveried car. Being passed by Valentin Pierberg, Davide Roda, and also Naji Razak and Ollie Wilkinson looking to file through as well. Wilkinson, the new for 2019 Aston Martin. Here Bradley Ellis, staying with the Optimum Motorsport team, but switching from the Audi to the Aston. Wilkinson currently in 18th place. Here is how Naji Razak saw all of that. Behind Davide Roda. Had to try and make the manoeuvre, and he was able to do just that. So still this fight for 5th continues. Crestani doing a good job of fending off Cheever, but then just behind them is the car of Saravia. And Saravia now 6.9 seconds adrift of teammate Alam Kader. Kader, though, front of the field, has got 3-second buffer over Daniel Zampieri as we come towards the end of the 4th lap of the race, and it really is this fight for second place, which is the closest, as Albert Costa right up in pursuit of Daniel Zampieri. Martin Kodrich part of that scrap as well, and what is so enticing about this scrap is, and indeed these early stages, the field split is thus far minimal. We've got 20 minutes until the driver change starts, so they're going to have to sort this out on track. And as Costa and Zampieri battle, it just allows Martin Kodrich to stay with them. And Crestani and Cheever as well with a very slender elevation of their pace, will be part of this scrap too. All of which is very good news for Alam Kader, who is just able to continually ease clear of the cars behind him. What Alam Kader will want to do is give his co-driver Marcello Hahn the biggest possible margin to inherit at the mid-race point, because it is in second, third and fourth, all pro combinations, and therefore Hahn, who forms the AM part of the pro-am pairing with Alam Kader, will want a nice buffer to try and defend, as back in car with Martin Kodrich. Watching Albert Costa. Costa, though, as they head towards the Courbe du Cygne, clearly not contemplating move on Zampieri on this occasion, but Costa, a couple of occasions, has used the traction of the Lamborghini to very good effect to challenge into turn 11. He can't quite do it on this occasion. He runs a little bit wide on the exit of the Courbe du Cygne. Kodrich right in behind him as well. As the field all filter their way through. As Costa, just each and every time we see those cars, they just appear to be a teeny bit closer to each other. Just turning up the heat on Daniel Zampieri, trying to force an error from Zampieri. Kader through and over the line. 4 seconds now his advantage, as we're just over the 10-minute mark in the race. Costa then trying to force the Antonelli Motorsport Mercedes into an error. Martin Kodrich just content to sit and watch. They've got a buffer about 1.5 seconds over Fabrizio Crostani, and Crostani has, for now, been able to just stave off the attentions of Chiva and Saravia behind him, and that means he was 0.5 seconds quicker than the Zampieri scrap on the last lap, and it means that we might have this group of 2nd through to 7th all looking to form up on each other in fairly short order as they head on to the Mistral Straight now. In the AM class, that is still Giuseppe Cipriani who leads the way from Davide Roda and Alexander Fraquina. And Antonio Coimbra back into the pits in the Sports New Mercedes, but I fear the damage to that puncture a bit too much, as now it's going to be really close towards the Courbe du Cygne this time round, and this is the best opportunity that Albert Costa has had of the race thus far to overhaul Daniel Zampieri. Can he take advantage? He looks to the inside. It was never really quite going to come off, and now Costa under immediate pressure from Martin Kodrich. Costa knows, though, exactly where to position the Lamborghini, and therefore there is no way through for Kodrich, and immediately Costa back onto terms with Daniel Zampieri, and that, you get the feeling, is how this race is going to unfold, with the level of ebb and flow. With the next group of cars all in close pursuit, headed up by Fabrizio Crostani, and this is a really lively start to the race, and indeed the season. Quite how the race is going to unfold really remains to be seen, because you would say that probably any one of the top 10 cars could be in with a possibility of challenging for victory. Certainly if we were to have a safety car or some other ill-timed interruption to the race. So into turns 4 and 5, and Zampieri maybe just a little bit greedy on the way into turn 4. But there's no angle for Albert Costa to exploit through turns 5. Into turn 6 now. Then the fast left-hander at turn 7 that will propel them onto the Mistral Straight. Meanwhile, adventures for Davide Roda, and that allows Duncan Cameron through to gain the place in the Spirit of Race Ferrari. Back on track, though, for Antonio Coimbra, as now this is the moment for Costa, who looks to the inside of Zampieri, and he went very deep on the brakes. It didn't work out. Trying to take advantage of the lap car. Zampieri, though, knew exactly what the right braking point was going to be, and now it opens the door to Martin Kodrich to challenge Costa as they head towards the Courbe du Cygne. The McLaren draws alongside the Lamborghini in the sunshine. but it's Costa who just keeps his nose in front. Immediately, though, it brings Crestani, Chiva and Saravia all into the fight as well. In car with Martin Kodrich. Now, will we see a Mercedes to the inside of us? Not quite. Martin Kodrich, having had the luxury of being able to pretty much attack at will for the last couple of laps, has now got the boot somewhat on the other foot and is having to defend just a little bit. Meanwhile, Shiva looks to the inside of Crestani, nothing doing, and so all of the battles just ripple themselves through. Thomas Jaeger continues to watch in the Pro Racing Sun Energy 1 Racing Mercedes, as again, Chiva looks to pull the pin, and this time makes the move, stick on for Fabrizio Crestani, great manoeuvre. And then with Chiva the third, able to move up ahead of Fabrizio Crestani, it semi-opens the door to Andres Saravia to challenge, and Saravia looked like he might have got half an opening, but he's not been able to get past Crestani. As now, Zampieri leads the charge on to the Mistral straight once more. This is the 8th lap of the race. Another look at the manoeuvre from Chiva, and Fabrizio Crestani possibly a tiny bit complacent there, as Albert Costa bobs and weaves behind Daniel Zampieri. Daniel Zampieri knows exactly where he needs to position that Mercedes, and as a result, there isn't a huge amount that Albert Costa can do just at the moment. But a thoroughly enjoyable start to the season in the spring sunshine. Martin Kodrich looking to line up again behind Albert Costa, and Costa needs to be careful here with the track limits because he has slithered wide through the Courbe du Sine on a couple of occasions. That is a little bit of a challenge for them here in the SPS Automotive car. Fabrizio Crestani looking to take the challenge towards the Tempesta Racing Ferrari. No way through just at the moment. Front of the field, though, Alam Kader taking full advantage of this. He leads by some 7.5 seconds, but these cars so evenly matched. We've got 11.5 minutes until the pit window opens. We'd expect that the bulk of these cars will stay out fairly deep into the pit window, you would think. So again, looking to make the challenge, Zampieri darting every which way behind Albert Costa, darting every which way behind Daniel Zampieri. Zampieri, though, positioning the car. Martin Kodrich watching and waiting. Chiva trying to latch into the scrap as well. Out of turn 7, onto the Mistral straight once more. 7.6 seconds is Alam Kader's advantage. As again, Costa thinks about the move. This is forcing a little bit of raggedness maybe from Zampieri. Just had to pitch the Mercedes into a slight slide, and it is Martin Kodrich who could be the big beneficiary of this. Kodrich, who has been exercising an unreasonable degree of patience for a racing driver, now able to draw alongside. Albert Costa as they head in towards the Courbe du Sine, and that is a brilliantly judged move from Martin Kodrich, who set that up absolutely wonderfully, executes it to perfection, and moves up into 3rd place, but he leaves the door slightly open into turn 11, and Costa's going to fight back, and he pushes Kodrich out wide, and Kodrich can't fight back again, and he just needed to have shut the door a little bit more in the Mercedes. He did all the hard work, beautiful pass, and then he concedes the place a corner or two later. So we are back as we were, approaching the 20-minute mark of the race. As we kick through the final turn once more. And this race has all the makings of being up there with the absolutely legendary race that we had here in 2016, which was went all the way to the wire on the final lap. And here we have the cars tightly bunched. Thomas Jaeger also just watching and waiting. As Chiva flashes his headlights, despite the sign on the timing monitor, which obviously Chiva can't see, saying that no flashing is allowed. So there's certainly times in previous years when we've seen enough flashing to have written the whole book in Morse code, as that was how it felt for Martin Kodrich as Albert Costa swept past him. Initial delight from Enrique Chavez at that move, and then slight frustration as Kodrich had to reconcede the place. So all this battling now happening, 8.6 seconds behind Alam Kader. Now, in terms of the all-pro lineups here, they may not be too concerned about that, because Marcello Hahn will take over from Alam Kader, is quick, but they will fancy their chances maybe at reeling in about 8 seconds worth of advantage in the second half of the race. The real challenge, though, as we're 8 minutes away from the pit window opening, is now the strategy that the teams deploy. Do they stay in this group, or do they pit early, trying to get a little bit of clear air, with the risk, of course, that they all jump into the pits to get a little bit of clear air? Well, in second position, all the while, it has been Daniel Zampieri, who has just soaked up this pressure from Albert Costa, Martin Kodrich and the rest of them. And Costa still hasn't yet had that really definitive opportunity to move past Daniel Zampieri. It shows just what limit these drivers are racing at. They're all really extracting the very, very most that they can from this machinery. As again, thundering past the commentary box, which vibrates under my feet. It's a train of cars through the opening chicane. And this is truly brilliant racing. Multi-mark GT racing at its very, very best, because we have got a Mercedes ahead of a Lamborghini, ahead of a McLaren, ahead of a Ferrari. Still trying to look for a way past Albert Costa in pursuit of Daniel Zampieri in the Antonelli Motorsport Mercedes. Alam Kader, Matteo Marti Motorsport McLaren. He's the way. Miguel Ramos discussing strategy on the SPS Automotive pit wall. And Fabrizio Crostani, having been passed by Chiva, he's staying with them, but he's not, despite the defensive efforts of Zampieri, not quite able to just bridge that couple of car lengths that's opened up. Again, Zampieri this time around a little bit ragged out of the chicane. It gives half an opening to Albert Costa, who looks to challenge through the Corbe de Scene. He goes side by side with Daniel Zampieri as they head down towards turn 11, and they're all looking, jinking anywhere to place the car. The order doesn't change. But this is motorsport at its very, very best. No gimmicks, no artificial passing aids, just very evenly matched cars racing each other wheel to wheel, and so far it has all been very clean. As again, Costa looking every which way behind Zampieri, trying to force the Mercedes driver to be defensive through the final turn. That might give Costa the opportunity to then take advantage of a slingshot down towards turn 1. Meanwhile, Fabrizio Crostani defending pretty robustly from Andres Saravia, but it's done the trick for the moment. He's kept the McLaren behind him, but Crostani also succeeding in beginning to back Saravia up into the clutches of Jaeger as Chiva gets passed by both of them, and Saravia gains the place on Fabrizio Crostani. Can he hold it? That's brilliantly opportunistic driving. Thomas Jaeger trying to get part of it as well, and it's Edward Chiva, the third, who has hit trouble in the Tempesta Racing Ferrari and loses a glut of places in just a heartbeat. So now it's Saravia who goes up into 5th place, Crostani to 6th, Jaeger up to 7th, and here is how it felt for Fabrizio Crostani as Saravia hurtling to the inside. Superb move from Andres Saravia. Chiva trying to get part of the action as well, but Thomas Jaeger positioned to pick his way past the Ferrari, who also lost out to Alberto Di Folco. So that has rather split the fight for second into two distinct groups now. And immediately Fabrizio Cristani now applying the pressure to Andres Saravia, so the boot very much on the other foot. Meanwhile, in the battle for second, momentary respite for Daniel Zampieri, who seems to be a slither further ahead of Albert Costa than he was a few moments ago. Zampieri bouncing the limits of adhesion with the tyres. Accelerating towards turns 1 and 2 again. They pick their way through. The pit window opening in 3 minutes' time, so the end of the lap after the one that they're currently on is when we will start to see the strategy coming into play. Classes will also begin to unfold themselves as well a little bit. Alam Kader, though, leads by 10.3 seconds from Daniel Zampieri, and this is beginning to translate itself, particularly as we'd expect Kader to stay out fairly deep into the pit window, to a decent advantage for Marcello Hahn as and when he does get behind the wheel. Oh, with a problem there for one of the Lazarus Lamborghinis, and that is the car of Fabio Onidi. Wonder quite what that was. But either way, he has drifted smoke over half the circuit. Now Saravia just beginning to ease away from Cipriani. Thomas Jaeger can't quite get onto terms with Cristani. Martin Kodrich still doing what he needs to do in 4th place. Watching the battle for 2nd and 3rd unfolding in front of him. As the cars accelerate through over the line. This to reel off the 13th lap of the race. But for those that got in trouble, the entire field only separated by about 48 seconds through this opening half hour or so of the race, and that really does leave the door open to some late charges, particularly if we were to have a safety car period. So when the pit stops occur, it's going to be Alessio Rivera, one-time race winner in the Euroformula Open, who takes over from Daniel Zampieri. And here is another look at something dragging on the tyre of Fabio Onidi. And again down the back straight. And in the case of Albert Costa, it'll be Giacomo Altoe who takes over. From him, Martin Kodrich to hand over to Enrique Chavez. Now here is battle between Giuseppe Cipriani and Valentin Pierberg for 13th place. Pierberg, the reigning Pro-Am champion, alongside Tom Onslow Cole. And Onslow Cole, Valentin Pierberg, outright race winners last year. And we saw Onslow Cole working miracles. He's got 36 seconds to the race and class leaders make up, and rather feel for Fabio Onidi that it might be time to think about paying a visit to the pits, because something is clearly causing a fairly big problem for him, and just hope that that is not fluid that he is depositing everywhere. No, it's a bit of bodywork that has been shed. And Onidi, as the pit lane opens, heads back as Martin Kodrich darts into the pits. So the Teo Marti Motorsport squad deciding to roll the strategy dice with Enrique Chavez and Martin Kodrich and Andres Saravia and Fran Rueda. So Kodrich, the blue car, that will be Enrique Chavez who takes over. Fran Rueda to the rear wheel of the red car. So down the pit lane they come, watching for the lollipop to a halt. Rueda opens the door, unstraps Saravia. Job done, and that was a very fine stint from Andres Saravia from a difficult qualifying. He's really kept that car right in contention for victory. Also in is Kang Ling. Bradley Ellis take over from Ollie Wilkinson. Rafael Gia Maria for Jiatong Liang. Thomas Locole from Valentin Pierberg. Matt Griffin for Duncan Cameron. So lots of changes all happening. Martin Conrad also in for Alexandra Raquina. As Fabio Nidi continues to limp round to the pits. Here is our race leader, Alam Kader. 10.5 seconds, his advantage over Daniel Zampieri. We've not seen very much of the Teo Marti Motorsport McLaren. But Kader has been able to build up a healthy buffer at the front of the field. Now we'd expect, with another 12 minutes left of the pit window, that he is going to be in fairly late on, as will a lot of the Pro-Am combinations at the front of the field. As Bradley Ellis emerges from the pits, wheel of the Optima Motorsport Aston Martin. And this is a truly enthralling race, it has to be said. Really, really fascinating as to how this is going to pan out. We've still got 40 minutes or so to look forward to on this bright spring afternoon. Matt Griffin emerging from the pits as well. And this now a little bit of a dilemma for the Teo Marti Motorsport team. Alam Kader is going to be in and amongst the traffic of some cars emerging from the pits, all of which having their own race. So they're not going to jump aside easily for him. As the also into the pit lane now has come Daniel Zampieri to hand over to Alessio Rivera, Achiever in as well for Christopher Froggatt. So Albert Costa now released on his own in second place. There is the change, Froggatt in for Cheever, the Spirit of Race Tempesta Racing Ferrari. Matt Griffin, headlights ablaze, looking to try and find a way past Giuseppe Cipriani. Also Federico Leo for Najid Razak. It's all a change from the Ombra Racing team. And the bulk of the pit stops completed early on as Matt Griffin really looking every which way to overhaul Cipriani, getting somewhat frustrated. But Giuseppe Cipriani, very, very experienced driver, and he's used to racing in powerful machinery. But this is now the scrap that Alam Kader is arriving onto the tail of. Not quite at half race distance, but Kader can't really afford to be delayed by this squabble in front. So now there is a call to be made, one would suggest, for the Teo Marti Motorsport squad. Because Kader has romped his way up onto the tail of these two cars. And still Griffin looking to try and pass Cipriani, who is defending his ground, as he's every right to. Kader trying to lap them both. In the background, Albert Costa, now into some clear air, has just set the fastest lap of the race. So Albert Costa in the Emil Frey Racing Lexus, not Lexus, Lamborghini, of course, a 2 minutes 1.0, sets the fastest lap of the race. Fabrizio Cristani, Thomas Jaeger also enjoying a little bit of clear air now and letting the Mercedes run as they want it to. Costa took 0.6 of a second out of Kader's advantage last time through. That may get even more substantial on this lap, because still Matt Griffin yet to find a way past Giuseppe Cipriani, and Alam Kader yet to find a way past both of them. Another 8 minutes or so in the pit window. Here comes this group of cars into the Mistral Straight, And a big moment for Froggatt, locking up the brakes to turn 8. He's going to just straight line the chicane. And Albert Costa, already on this lap, he's about a second up on Alain Cadet. And so Costa, able to really play the Emil Frey Racing Lamborghini into competitive position now. For Froggatt, that lock-up has just allowed him to set the fastest middle sector of the race thus far, which I'm sure won't go unnoticed over in race control. As Davide Roda rejoins the fray. Only a handful of cars yet to pit in. Of those that have, it is Alessio Rivera. Great scrap actually underway between Alessio Rivera, Enrique Chavez and Fran Rueda, currently on the Mistral straight, and they are the top 3 of the cars that have pitted. So we'll try and get up as still. Cadet can't find a way past Cipriani and Griffin. And both Griffin and Cadet getting increasingly frustrated, but the fight effectively for the lead of the race from those that have pitted is equally close. 3 cars covered by just 0.7 of a second, which is Rivera, Chavez and Rueda. As Christopher Froggatt back in to the pits, so frustration for the Ferrari team. Also, Nicola Di Marco into the wheel of the Lazarus Lamborghini. He shares with Nicolas Pola. And Cadet is starting to hemorrhage time here behind Cipriani and Griffin. At what point do the Teo Martin Motorsport team think about bringing the Brazilian into the pits? Possibly sooner rather than later. At the same time, Albert Costa has still got the opportunity to make merry for another couple of laps if he so desires. And also, Alan, this is the battle then of those that have pitted. These are the top 3 cars, and they're currently circulating in the low 2-minute 1 second bracket, so they're currently a second a lap quicker than Alain Cadet, the race leader, because they aren't in traffic. So when the pit stops have worked themselves through, this is going to be very, very close as to see who comes out where. The pit window open for another 5 minutes. So time for 2 more laps. So Fran Rueda pursuing teammate Enrique Chavez as, yes, Alain Cadet, not surprisingly, into the pit lane now. So where will Marcello Hahn slot back into things? Find out. It's door up, air jacks up. Also in is Albert Costa, Giacomo Altoe taking over from him. And the Emil Frey Racing team, as ever, slick and at work in the pits. Here are the cars that they are essentially racing while static. Alessio Rivera ahead of Enrique Chavez and Fran Rueda. Thomas Jaeger and Fabrizio Cristani continuing on their way. And the way that my maths has it is this is going to be something like a 7-car shootout for race victory by the time all the pit stops have worked themselves through. The other driver who we would have expected to be upwardly mobile is, and that is Tom Onslow Cole, who is just behind, he's now 10 seconds drift of Kang Ling, who is his next target in the Pro-Am class in terms of moving up through the order. So here we go, and it looks as if it's going to be advantage Emil Frey Racing. So Marcello Hahn emerges just ahead of Giacomo Altoe, and then the Lamborghini's been able to get the jump on Alessio Rivera and the brace of Teo Martin Motorsport McLaren. So now we have got a real fight in our hands. Marcello Hahn is thrown straight into the deep end, as is Giacomo Altoe. They haven't been behind the wheel at all today. They're going to be on colder tyres than Rivera, Chavez and Rueda, who will all be up to rhythm, up to speed. Fabrizio Cristani Thomas Jaeger and Alberto Di Folco, all remaining out on track, but all at a pace that's currently a couple of seconds adrift of the one that's currently being set. Alain Cadet out of the car. And here are effectively the top 5 in the race, as Fabrizio Cristani just sets the fastest lap of the race. Oh, and a mistake from Marcello Hahn into the chicane. That is going to give Giacomo Altoe the opportunity maybe to challenge into the Courbe du Sine, as Cristani suddenly upping his pace, as does Thomas Jaeger. And so they are going to be very much in the mix. Cristani will hand over to Miguel Ramos. It will be Kenny Habel, the Australian, who takes over from Thomas Jaeger. And now Marcello Hahn, he's got a real task on his hands here, because what he wants to try and do is just back up Giacomo Altoe long enough to bring Alessio Rivera and his teammates into the scrap. If he can do that, then all bets are off, really. We saw a couple of times last year that Hahn, when under pressure, can really just soak it up. And this is one of the times where he's going to need to do just that. If he concentrates on sticking to the racing line, he concentrates on getting good corner exits onto the long straights, then there's not a whole amount that Giacomo Altoe can do. And that looked pretty clean from Marcello Hahn out of the final turn. So this quintet sprint down the start and finish straight, where the Cristani and Jaeger cars will feed into this post-pit stops remains to be seen. But for now, we have got these 5 cars, all of whom are at the very least going to be in the hunt for podium positions, if not a fair bit more, busy battling with each other. Marcello Hahn, for the moment, keeping Altoe behind him, but now Giacomo Altoe goes to the move inside Marcello Hahn. He runs wide, and it allows Rivera to challenge Hahn, then moves back across, right in the path of teammate Enrique Chavez, and well, Marcello Hahn had to claim the racing line, but it may have cost the Teo Martin Motorsport squad the chance of race victory this afternoon. Chavez and Rueda will look to move clear of Marcello Hahn as quickly as possible, as Alessio Rivera looks to challenge Giacomo Altoe. But at the moment, everybody racing for themselves, and Hahn looking to stay on pace. Here is Miguel Ramos hopping in to the SPS Automotive Mercedes. Now, where will Ramos feed in? Kenny Habel also jumping in to take over from Thomas Jaeger. They're effectively going to feed out somewhere with this group of cars. Difficult to know where. Tom Onslow Colmy, while set the fastest lap of the race at 2 minutes 0.7. And Onslow Coley is 16, 17 seconds adrift of this battle, which is an ask, other than to say that he's going currently 2 seconds a lap quicker than the race leaders, as Chavez gets to the inside of Marcello Hahn and makes the move up into 3rd place. So Enrique Chavez clear to try and pursue. And Fran Rueda will look to do much the same as quickly as possible through the final turn. Now, where are the brace of Mercedes? Here they come, and it's going to be Miguel Ramos who will emerge in the lead of the race as Ramos gets up to speed. He's going to join the track almost right in front of Giacomo Altoe, and now this is a real ask of Miguel Ramos. Cold tyres in the SPS Automotive Mercedes, and Ramos effectively leading, well, he does lead the race with Kenny Habel out just behind them. Miguel Ramos, very experienced competitor at this level. He knows an awful lot of tricks in the book as Altoe barges to the side of Miguel Ramos. They both run wide. That's going to allow Rivera, surely. No, it doesn't. Altoe shuts the door on Alessio Rivera. It brings Enrique Chavez into the mix as well, as Ramos drops down into 4th as they swing onto the Mistral straight. There's debris being kicked up all over the place as Giacomo Altoe somehow still leads the way from Alessio Rivera and Enrique Chavez, with Miguel Ramos and Alain Cadet. They're fighting, as Cadet is fighting, of course, with Kenny Habel just behind them for Pro-Am class honours. Fran Rueda still trying to pick his way past Marcello Hahn. Another look at it, and Altoe, well, that was the move on Hahn. And then that was, of course, how Chavez found his way past Marcello Hahn. Now, here is the move from Altoe, this time with Miguel Ramos, and that was slightly less clear cut. Indeed it was. The move is currently under investigation. It will probably come as no surprise to tell you, as in the background, Fran Rueda looking to make the move on Marcello Haaland. He is now past his Teo Martin Motorsport teammate. We are in car with Miguel Ramos. And Ramos, imagine the red mist is coming down a little bit, because there's two sides to every story, and you suspect that his side would be that he thought he got that corner reasonably well defended at that point. Giacomo Altoe would say that there was a gap to go for. So it's now the turn of Alessio Rivera to pursue this leading quintet of cars, all fighting for victory in the first race of the season in the International GT Open Championship. They're all covered by just 3 seconds. Certainly Giacomo Altoe, although he's got the lead, he's not really breaking away just at the moment. There's still, of course, 25 minutes to go in the race, so there is little to be gained maybe by overexerting the tyres just at the moment. See how the race unfolds, see how the Michelin tyres come good, as Enrique Chavez this time has a pretty decent run on Alessio Rivera as they come on to the Mistral straight, and Rivera is having to defend here from Chavez, who looks to draw alongside as they head into the braking zone, the chicane. No way through for Chavez, running a little bit wide there, Miguel Ramos. That may just give a glimmer of an opening for Fran Rueda as they come onto the second part of the straight. Indeed it does, and Rueda is going to draw alongside Ramos, who gives him not very much space at all, but Fran Rueda is built of sterner stuff than that. He's not going to be bullied into submission and moves to the inside of Miguel Ramos, takes the position. So that's Fran Rueda up into 4th place. Giacomo Altoe just building up a little bit of a buffer at the front of the field suddenly after the drama of Enrique Chavez passing Alessio Rivera. So now Chavez into some clear air. What can he do about the Lamborghini Huracan up the road ahead of him? And also, what can Fran Rueda do about Alessio Rivera? Behind all of this, Tom Onslow Cole has just set another fastest lap of the race at 2 minutes 0.6. And this is significant because Onslow Cole is currently lapping 3 seconds a lap quicker than the race leaders. He's only 20 seconds adrift of the race lead. And at that rate of capture, he could just about bring himself into contention. He and Valentin Pierberg are certainly looking pretty good bets for a spot on the Pro-Am podium. As Rueda looks to close up on to Alessio Rivera. Rivera being forced into defensive mode. And about the progress of Enrique Chavez, this is his first lap in clear air, pursuing Giacomo Altoe. Through the first section, Chavez was 0.3 seconds up on Altoe, down the Mistral straight towards the chicane. Nobody quite able to make a manoeuvre just yet. Miguel Ramos is certainly back up to speed and momentum. He's trying to pursue this group of cars as well, as Rueda again gets a good run out of the chicane into the second half of the straight. Rivera covers the inside line as he knows he needs to. Rueda now bursts out the bubble, looks to challenge the outside. Rivera's got the track position. That Mercedes is a big beast, but it runs wide, and through goes Fran Rueda up into 3rd place now for the McLaren. Rivera slips to 4th. Miguel Ramos continues to watch from 5th position. And he looks to get to terms with Alessio Rivera now. The front of the field, meanwhile, Enrique Chavez is just beginning to come back at Giacomo Altoe. This race is far from over. ...21 minutes, or just shy of 22 minutes to go. It's Miguel Ramos looking to try and line up the move on Alessio Rivera. Meanwhile, Teo Martin Motorsport McLarens pursuing the race leader, Giacomo Altoe. They are in clear air. Onslow Cole, meanwhile, we're tracking the progress through timing screens, moved ahead of Kang Ling, and now takes the second of the SPS Automotive Mercedes up to third in the Pro-Am class. So again, Enrique Chavez, a good run through the first section on the lap. He takes a little bit out of Altoe's advantage. Fran Rueda matching the leading duo. Giuseppe Cipriani sets the fastest lap of the race. Pretty phenomenal middle sector though, which suggests he's possibly had a fairly liberal relationship with using the steering wheel at the chicane. As out of the chicane now comes Miguel Ramos in full pursuit of Alessio Rivera. In front of the field, Enrique Chavez again inching ever closer to Giacomo Altoe. Chavez now 0.8 of a second adrift. It's Rivera busy defending from Ramos. Ramos looks to the outside turn 11, and Miguel Ramos finding the traction relative to the Antonelli Mercedes, and Miguel Ramos a beautiful manoeuvre around the outside at turn 11. That was really excellent stuff from Miguel Ramos, and he's been able to hold it. So he moves up into fourth place. Turning through the final turn. Now, team manager car 10, which is Miguel Ramos, to report to race control immediately. It's Marcello Hahn there still in the background. He leads the Pro-Am class. He's got about a 7-second advantage over Kenny Harble. And then Harble, in turn, clear of Tom Onslow Cole. Another look at that pass from Miguel Ramos. And he just made certain at the end of it that there was no way back for Alessio Rivera. Rivera may have views on that, as here come the race leaders. And that last lap, Giacomo Altoe just responding to Enrique Chavez. The leading trio, that was Fran Rueda, who was the fastest, but Rueda has got 3 seconds to try and close up. And we're talking 0.1 of a second now amongst this leading trio of cars. And Ramos in fourth, Rivera fifth, but rather fear that the tyres are fading a little bit on the Antonelli Mercedes. 6th place is Marcello Hahn. 7th place, Kenny Harble. 8th is Tom Onslow Cole. Onslow Cole, currently the quickest driver in the field, alongside Matt Griffin. Trio just relatively stable at the moment, as Giacomo Altoe has responded very well to the pressure that was applied from the McLarens. He's just beginning to rebuild his advantage ever so slightly over Enrique Chavez and Fran Rueda. We still don't know the outcome, though, of the move that was made to give Altoe the lead of the race. That was under investigation. So the outcome of that yet to be communicated to us. Through comes Altoe from Enrique Chavez, Fran Rueda. 2.8 seconds covering that leading group, as Fran Rueda now starting to turn up the wick a little bit. He's just done his best lap of the race, so 2 minutes 1.4, 0.3 of a second quicker than the race leader. And here comes Tom Onslow Cole in pursuit of Kenny Harble. We've mentioned Onslow Cole. He has set the fastest lap of the race, and now he's in the hunt for Pro-Am class victory. And the rate he is going, certainly second place in the class, is looking very much on the cards. Class victory, slightly more of an ask, depending on the sort of pace that Marcello Hahn is going to be able to maintain through to the checkered flag. So the team managers for Miguel Ramos, Davide Roda, to race control with immediate effect. So here's the fight for 7th place. In 9th place is Kang Ling, and Rafael Gianmaria currently completes the top 10 ahead of Bradley Edson 11th, Christoph Lentz in 12th, Matt Griffin in 13th. Giuseppe Cipriani leads the AM class in 14th, but only just 2 seconds clear of Martin Conrad, who is flying. And then the AM class podium currently being completed by Davide Roda. Onslow Cole picks his way through the Courbe du Cygne once more. And he is reeled in Kenny Harble over the course of this lap as the blue racing car just runs a little bit wide. This is going to give the opportunity for Onslow Cole to challenge, you would expect, between now and the end of the lap. And then Onslow Cole is released to see what he can do about class leader Marcello Hahn. 15 minutes to go. This for second place on the Pro-Am podium. Out of the final turn and accelerating through the start and finish straight. And Onslow Cole, will he come out of the bubble? Looks challenging into turn one. Draws alongside and through he goes. So Onslow Cole up into 7th position. And now released in pursuit of Marcello Hahn and Alessio Rivera. It's 10 seconds back from the leading group, but in clear air, Onslow Cole's pace has suggested that might just be achievable between now and the checkered flag. Meanwhile, the fight at the front of the field is very, very evenly matched between Giacomo Altoe, Enrique Chavez and Fran Rueda. Another look at the move from Onslow Cole to the inside of Kenny Harble. So here are the leaders. Into the Courbe du Cygne. And at the moment, Giacomo Altoe just managing things very nicely in the Emil Frey Racing Lexus. Enrique Chavez, every time he seems to just ease up, Altoe just finds something a little bit more to try and rebuild the buffer. Fran Rueda all the while trying to close in, and for the last few laps it's been Rueda who's been the quickest of the trio in 3rd place. It's looking likely that that is going to be the case once more on this lap as out of the final turn. Altoe through with a 2 minutes 1.571. Enrique Chavez 6,000 seconds slower, and actually on that occasion Fran Rueda a little bit slower again. So it's just 2.8 seconds that cover the top three. 13.5 minutes left on the clock here in Paul Ricard, and at the moment, look, it would appear as if Giacomo Altoe has got it all reasonably in hand. Not much of a buffer, but for now, he just seems to be able to manage the gap to Enrique Chavez. So 3 seconds added to the race time for Martin Conrad. Now that's significant because he's busy battling with Giuseppe Cipriani for the AM class lead, and if Conrad can get past Cipriani and pull away by, he needs to pull away by more than 3 seconds in order to claim that AM class win. In the background, coming on straight, Tom Onslow Cole, pursuing the battle between Alessio Rivera and Marcello Hahn. So the field all still in close contention. The Emil Frey Racing Lamborghini leading the way from the brace of Teo Martin Motorsport McLarens. Teo Martin Motorsport also leading the Pro-Am class as things stand. Marcello Hahn 7.5 seconds up the road from Tom Onslow Cole. With 12 minutes remaining. So as they come through, there's going to be time for 5 or 6 more laps. Emil Frey Racing Team watching the monitors. As Altoe comes out of the final turn. This to reel off his 28th lap of the race, or rather the car's 28th lap of the race. And no interruption at all in the form of safety cars as Enrique Chavez just elevates his pace a little bit does the McLaren's fastest lap of the race. So he gets back to within a second of Giacomo Altoe. Meanwhile, Tom Onslow Cole sets another fast lap of the race at 2 minutes, 0.606. Onslow Cole now just 5.7 seconds back from Marcello Hahn in the fight for Pro-Am class honours. Thomas Jaeger talking on the pit wall, and his driver Kenny Harble currently third in the Pro-Am class, but he's got Kang Ling actually right up behind his tail, and Raffaele Gianmaria not too far behind either. So third in the Pro-Am class is very much up for dispute. A couple of Mercedes all over, or a couple of Lamborghinis all over the Mercedes. And now this is a real elevation of pace from Enrique Chavez down to within 0.7 of a second of Giacomo Altoe. Altoe having to up his pace through the middle sector. And it's the Lamborghini's best middle sector of the race so far. Enrique Chavez, has he got something left in the Michelin tyres that he can now really draw on for the last 10 minutes of the race? It's almost as if the team have said to him that it's time to attack. Meanwhile, Miguel Ramos has got a 2-second penalty due to pit handicap. And that, as it stands, is going to mean absolutely nothing for Miguel Ramos. He's got more than 2 seconds of a buffer. And a 1-second penalty also for Davide Roda. Again, his nearest rival is something like 4 laps behind him, so I don't think that's going to be a huge concern. Now, at the front of the field, 0.8 between Altoe and Enrique Chavez. What has either driver got left in reserve in terms of their own energy, in terms of a trick up their sleeve, in terms of something to try and force the battle? Onslow Cole, fastest as well, just sets another fastest lap of the race. Fran Rueda also just trying to loom in on Altoe, trying to force the error from Giacomo Altoe, but it is the race leader who's had a much better first sector of the race than the car in second position. Hard at work, Marcello Hahn. Maybe pushing a little bit too hard, and that is with good reason, because he has got Onslow Cole beginning to loom fairly large in his mirrors. Giuseppe Cipriani now having posted the fastest lap of the race with a 1 minute 59.824. And this time around it has been, and that has been deleted pretty quickly, this time around it is still very much advantage Altoe. So he rebuilds the advantage out to over a second. So check of the class standings. Giuseppe Cipriani at the moment able to keep Martin Conrad behind him. And that is good news for Cipriani, not least because once Conrad's penalty comes into play, it's unlikely that Conrad's going to be able to get past Cipriani and then pull 3 seconds clear based on the way that things are currently unfolding. It's Giacomo Altoe into the final corner once more. 30 laps now into the books. And that lap slightly better for Giacomo Altoe over Enrique Chavez. Fran Rueda setting his best lap of the race in third, but he's unable to make a significant dent, really, on the advantage of the leaders. Now, here is the fight for third in the Pro-Am class. As Kang Ling under pressure from Raffaele Gianmaria. Both of them really need to stop fighting each other and try and get onto terms with Kenny Harble, the car that's third in the Pro-Am class at the moment. Meanwhile, the battle for the lead of the Pro-Am class is about to come to a head as Gianmaria looks to the inside of Kang Ling and goes through. And Raffaele Gianmaria gets the car stopped on the apex. Buys Kenny Harble a little bit of breathing room. So the Pro-Am class, where the podium positions are most likely to change, as confirmation that that pass from Giacomo Altoe over Miguel Ramos, it's been deemed half up fair, so there's going to be no further action. So That is a weight lifted from Altoe's shoulders. Here's the fight for the AM class lead then between the bright white Mercedes of Giuseppe Cipriani and the bright yellow Mercedes of Martin Conrad. They're both bottled up behind Christoph Lenz. And Cipriani, we saw earlier on, is a hard man to overtake. And that now is the challenge, Martin Conrad. But this isn't a bad run that he's got as they come onto the Mistral straight. At least it wasn't until he had that little bit of a wayward moment. 6 minutes to go. Alongside, or trying to be alongside rather, clouts the curb, clouts the corner marker. And this is the battle for 13th, 14th and 15th overall. It's the white Mercedes of Cipriani. You can barely see the yellow machine of Martin Conrad, who's right behind him in the slipstream. But the problem is, multi-mark racing is great when you're up against a car that performs slightly differently around the track than yours. It's much harder work when you're behind something that behaves ostensively identically, but that's an opportunity for Conrad. A slight error from Cipriani, so they went into turn 11, but Martin Conrad can't quite take advantage. Cipriani runs wide coming out of turn 11. He's all bottled up behind Christoph Lenz. Martin Conrad trying to just look for a bit of track space that's going to give him the traction. Maybe he can do it as they come through. And Cipriani driving a wide car, but he's doing the job at the moment. Driving a very wide car, and now Conrad goes through. But Martin Conrad, as we say, has got that 3-second penalty, so now he's past Cipriani. He's got to try and pull out 3 seconds in the remaining 3 or so laps of the race. Meanwhile, Tom Onslow Cole is past Marcello Hahn into the lead of the Pro-Am class, so Onslow Cole up to 6th overall, leads the Pro-Am class. Marcello Hahn and Kenny Harwell. Here's another look how it all unfolded. Cipriani doing everything he could to defend, but it just meant that he couldn't quite keep the tight line for the left-hander. Slithered a little bit, and that was enough to give the advantage. Meanwhile, at the front of the field, the battle for the lead is back on as Enrique Chavez back with Giacomo Altoe. And has Enrique Chavez got anything? There's going to be 2 more laps to run at the end of this one. As meanwhile, here's Onslow Cole. He's passed Hahn, as we said. He's now with Alessio Rivera, and he's passed Alessio Rivera and up into 5th position for Tom Onslow Cole, leader of the Pro-Am class. And he and Valentin Pirpa getting their title defence off to the very best possible start. So 3.5 minutes left in the race. 2 laps to run. And Enrique Chavez is now just half a second back from Giacomo Altoe. And it's going to be a case of now or never, you rather think, for Enrique Chavez. Onslow Cole pulls clear of Alessio Rivera. Rivera has a little bit of a look to the inside. That was, I think, more to keep his own spirits up than a serious chance to pass. But now, here is the battle for the lead. And as Giacomo Altoe got through the best of his tyres, is this the opportunity for Enrique Chavez to pull the pin as they head on to the Mistral straight for the penultimate time of asking? They're going to come on to terms with Luis Silva and sports a new Mercedes before too long. It's lights ablaze from Enrique Chavez. He closed right up to Giacomo Altoe on the brakes into the chicane. And it really is between these two. Fran Rueda, he just can't quite get onto terms with this battle unless Altoe and Chavez slow themselves down. But really, Enrique Chavez, he needs to be a couple of tenths of a second quicker, or a couple of tenths of a second nearer, rather, to Giacomo Altoe to make the race leader worry. So they come out of the Courbe du Cygne. Altoe using every inch of the road, but then so is Chavez. So they close the gap down now into turn 11. About 7 kilometres of racing to go here. The season opener in Paul Ricard, and it is going to be a grandstand finish with a slight bobble there from Chavez. Good driving from Luis Silva. He allows the race leaders through. Chavez, he's cost himself that 10th or 2 that he'd earned. And he now needs to get back onto terms as quickly as possible with Giacomo Altoe, who heads into the final turn. He'll accelerate through now. The pit board will say L1. He'll know that it's the last lap of the race, and he just needs to make sure that If anything else, he drives as wide a car as possible. So it's the Emil Frey Racing Lamborghini versus the Teo Martin Motorsport McLaren into the final lap here in Paul Ricard. Under half a second between the pair of them after 70 minutes of racing. But who is going to come out on top here? All eyes on the monitor. The tension really starting to build as they pick their way through turns 4 and 5. And Chavez is right there with Altoe. With Altoe, he was slow on the apex, he could afford to be, because he knows it's coming to the Mistral straight that's all key. And this time around, though, it's Enrique Chavez, who was just that little bit neater than Giacomo Altoe as they swing out of turn 7. And so the McLaren is going to ease up towards the Lamborghini as they enter the first sector. It was just 4 tenths between them. Chavez lights the place, though he's not close enough. Under braking to challenge Altoe, or is he? He gets right onto his tail, but he might have just gone for that a little bit too early, because it's cost him the advantage as they head into the second part of the Mistral straight. It's going to give Altoe a couple of hundredths of a second, 400ths of a second, but that's enough to maintain the advantage into the Courbe du Cygne then for the final time. Running a little bit wide there, Altoe. Chavez keeps it neat. We go in car now with the Portuguese driver. He closes up onto terms with Giacomo Altoe through turn 11. But Altoe knows what he's doing. He's focusing his corner exit speed. That's all he needs to do. If Enrique Chavez is going to go for this, it's going to be a last corner lunge, and he's not quite close enough to make that stick. He needs to be a couple of car lengths nearer to the race leader. And Giacomo Altoe soaking up the pressure through the final lap of the race into the final corner. Chavez closes up. Altoe just needs to apply the throttle, which he does, and accelerates through. The checkered flag goes out, and it's victory in the opening round of the 2019 International GT Open for Emil Frey Racing. Giacomo Altoe and Albert Costa, with Teo Martin Motorsport locking out the rest of the podium. Enrique Chavez and Martin Kodrich second from Fran Rueda and Andres Saravia. Miguel Ramos, Fabrizio Cristani into 4th, and Tom Onslow Cole takes the flag in 5th place to give he and Valentin Pierberg victory in the Pro-Am class. Second in class to Marcello Hahn and Alain Cadet, with Raffaele Gianmaria next through. He will take 3rd place in the Pro-Am class alongside Jiatong Liang. Martin Conrad, at the last timing split in the AM class, was 4 seconds up on Giuseppe Cipriani, so it might be that Conrad is going to snatch last gasp victory in the AM class from Cipriani. We'll see what happens once the times adjust. So, fantastic racing to kick off the International GT Open season, and a victory for the returning Emil Frey Racing squad, this time partnering with Lamborghini, but all the same giving them an excellent result. Wonderfully close race this as well. So much battling and dicing going on throughout the course of the afternoon. But it is victory for Giacomo Altoe and Albert Costa in the opening round of the 2019 campaign. So look then at the final classification. Costa and Altoe taking the victory from Martin Kodrich and Enrique Chavez. First of the Teo Martin Motorsport McLarens, with Fran Rader and Andres Saravia completing the podium. Ramos and Cristani a fine 4th. Valentin Pierberg and Tom Onslow Cole Pro-Am victory and fast lap of the race, ahead of Daniel Zampieri and Alessio Rivera. Marcello Hahn, Alain Cadet second in the Pro-Am class from Jiatong Liang, and Raffaele Gianmaria ahead of Kenny Harbel, Thomas Jaeger, and then Ling and Schandorf rounding out the top 10. In terms of the AM class, Martin Conrad and Alexander Hraquina taking the victory from Giuseppe Cipriani and Davide Roda. Fine drives as well from Bradley Ellis and Matt Griffin to finish in 11th and 12th place respectively. Others in the wars like Fabio Onidi and the Spirit of Race Tempesta Racing Ferrari, which will surely feature tomorrow. Likewise, we saw nothing of the Grenier Seidler Lamborghini out on the first lap of the race. So down pit lane for our opening race winners Albert Costa and Giacomo Altoe. And Altoe and Costa having to work very hard for this one. There's Costa running down to Parc Fermé to open the door and celebrate. Delighted drivers congratulating each other on an afternoon's work. Very well done. Plenty of stress, just 0.5 of a second the advantage at the line. As into position comes Enrique Chavez to celebrate with Martin Kodrich. So all smiles down in Parc Fermé.
Race together and win.
The team delighted with the efforts as well, but plenty to celebrate as well for Teo Martin Motorsport. Moving to the McLarens and immediately two of the cars on the podium, and Marcello Hahn on the Pro-Am podium as well in the third of the entries. So smiles, handshakes, and congratulations all around. And an afternoon's work, I think, as tense for the drivers on the pit wall as the ones in the car, given the way that the racing unfolded. But a very spectacular race to start the 2019 season. Hopefully a sign of things to come. So mechanics now all able to make their way down underneath the podium, ready to celebrate when the drivers head up onto the rostrum. We will shortly be able to hear from our race winners. Had to work very, very hard for that constant pressure for both Altoe and Costa throughout the course of the race. So we will be hearing from our race winners in just a couple of moments' time. As they celebrate a job well done. But good battling throughout all of the classes this afternoon. So I'm sure that we will have a plethora of very, very happy drivers when we get them up on to the podium. So look back at that moment of triumph for Giacomo Altoe and Albert Costa. Chavez tried everything he could in the last couple of laps, but it just wasn't quite enough to force the Lamborghini driver into an error and be able to take the victory. Nonetheless, the Teo Martin Motorsport team, Chavez and Kodrich, a new pairing, new to GT racing, and immediately right on the pace. So all set under the podium, getting ready for the podium. So as the lights went out to start the season, it was Alan Kader who was able to get the jumps. They headed towards turn one with a very fast starting Edward Shiva in the middle of the field. But it was Kader who just squeezed ahead of Daniel Zampieri as Albert Costa and Martin Kodrich went wheel to wheel. Fortunately for Michael Grenier, First race of the year ended at turn 5 after contact with Nicholas Pola. Meanwhile, Maurizio Crestani and Chiva were busy doing battle. Chiva getting the upper hand as Martin Kodrich and Albert Costa had a superb scrap, a brilliant move from Kodrich around the outside of Costa into the Cour d'Issy. Unfortunately, it wasn't to last. Meanwhile, Saravia also in the thick of the action, taking advantage of a traffic jam. This was the move that put Giacomo Altoe into the lead of the race, a lead that he would ultimately not relinquish, as Miguel Ramos and Alessio Rivera did battle late on. Tom Onslow Cole scythed through the field in the second half of the race to give him and Valentin Pierberg their first Pro-Am class victory of the season, on the way to an eventual and very fine 5th place for Onslow Cole. And Pierberg in the SPS Automotive Mercedes. Enrique Chavez pushed all the way to the line, but victory in the first race of the year went to Giacomo Altoe and Albert Costa in the Emil Frey Racing Lamborghini, head of the Braceteo Martin Motorsport McLarens, Enrique Chavez and Martin Kodrich from Fran Rueda and Andres Saravia. AM class honours to Martin Conrad and Alexander Raquina. So on to the podium. Applause and celebration. The Teo Martin Motorsport teammates congratulate each other. With Albert Costa, Giacomo Altoe celebrating on the top step of the podium for ML Freer Racing on their return to the International GT Open.
Bien évidemment, ensemble, nous allons écouter l'hymne des vainqueurs d'aujourd'hui. Il s'agit de l'hymne de la Suisse.
So national anthem to salute the winning Emil Frey Racing Lamborghini of Albert Costa and Giacomo Altoe. On to the presentation of the trophies then. Just a reminder, of course, that the weekend's business is only half done. We will be back at about 2:45 local time tomorrow afternoon for the second race of the weekend, the slightly shorter 60-minute race. But do make sure that you join us for that. From today, an intriguing start to the International GT Open season. From tomorrow, we will have the success handicap starting to come into force, and given how closely matched the field was today, that is surely going to be a big factor as the season unfolds. As the drivers celebrate on the podium here in Paul Ricard, it's time to say thank you for joining us for the season opener, and we'll look forward to you joining us tomorrow for the second race of the 2019 International GT Open season. So all smiles on the rostrum. We'll be back tomorrow for the second race of the weekend in Paul Ricard. Move on now and turn our attention to the Pro-Am podium with, in third place, Rafael Gianmaria and Jiatong Liang. Runners-up, Marcello Hahn and Alain Cadet. And Pro-Am class winners, Tom Onslow Cole and Valentin Pierberg. Liang and Gianmaria to the third step on the rostrum. Runners-up, Cadet and Hahn, an excellent drive in the event to 7th place overall. And then Valentin Pierberg and Tom Onslow Cole to the top step of the podium. Tough afternoon's racing for all of them. Cadet led so well early on, got caught in that traffic just at the end of his stint. It put Hahn out into the heat of the battle, but then Onslow Cole carving through. Enough to give him and Pierberg class victory. And again, last year the Pro-Am Championship came down to the last lap of the last race of the season. And based on the evidence so far, suggests that this year is going to be another close title fight. The drivers post the photos, then make merry with the bubbly. Mutual agreement all around, if they're going to spray it, that they're going to spray it away from each other. Alain Cadet very, very tempted to do some VIP soaking. And Gianmaria soaks Pierberg, who may have won the race, but he came dead last in the champagne uncorking race as Pierberg and Onslow Cole celebrate some super slow-mo action of our Pro-Am podium finishes, and then we will turn our attention to the Am class podium with in third place Davide Roda, runner-up Giuseppe Cipriani and Martin Conrad and Alexander Raquina taking Am class honours. The first race of the year. So Davide Roda for Antonelli Motorsport on to the third step of the podium. Giuseppe Cipriani, his teammate. Both of them having very busy afternoons, particularly Cipriani, right in the thick of the action on the way to 15th overall, with Conrad and Raquina finishing in 13th overall and as Am class winners for the HTP Motorsport squad. Safe to say that Davide Roda is rather enjoying the moment. A celebration for Conrad and Harquina. Martin Conrad charging the second half of the race again. A late move on Cipriani to give them the Am class victory. They thank the team and celebrate. And as the drivers are all smiles on the podium, it means it's time to say thank you very much in joining us in Paul Ricard this afternoon. We will be back at about 2:45 Central European time tomorrow for the second race of the International GT Open season. Until then, goodbye.
C'est le moment, on arrose tout le monde, on se fait plaisir. C'était le 3e podium de notre GT Open international. Du sport, de la mécanique, des émotions, on est ensemble tout le week-end. Vous avez l'international GT Open dans le programme total, évidemment. Et on